Hello my friends, this is Davi speaking. Welcome to another one of our videos. And my friends, I want to get your attention because whenever we talk about signs of the end of the world, apocalyptic signs, Christians themselves are always paying attention to this because it was a recommendation from the Messiah himself, right? He said that when the return of the Son of Man comes, he will come like a thief. No one will be expecting it. He will come suddenly. But for those who know the word of God, who believe in the prophecies, they should pay attention to the signs, because these signs would show that that day was drawing near. And what do we always look at? At nature, the phenomena happening, and there are many at the same time, right? There are fires breaking out of nowhere, earthquakes, cold places getting hot anyway, a lot of things happening in the world at the same time. But I would tell you that where things are really going unnoticed and where there are more signs, more than traffic lights, is exactly in human behavior. Just so you know, Christians are being killed in parts of the world right now, and no one is talking about it. When you see anyone criticizing certain religious practices, which even include sacrifices of food and animals, here in Brazil we have to put up with that, right? Even the gods of Olympus have already decided that if someone who follows this sacrifices your cat, it's not a crime because they're practicing their faith and maybe they didn't know. We've already shown similar cases where she was acquitted. Like I said, they don't make laws, but when they make judgments like this one, right? Because I didn't report it here. Some called it fake news. No, they acquitted someone who was caught, a feline like that. Sacrificed it, and then this sets a precedent so that another judge doesn't even have to try the case, just applies that same understanding, and this can be done, right? That's what's called precedent, even if a specific law doesn't exist. But since there was a trial and that was the decision of the judges, another judge can just follow it. So you see, not even that, right? We can speak openly while it's like this on the other side, ours, the Christian side, we're being sacrificed all the time. So I want you to watch this clip here. Listen.
All right, there's something scary happening in Nigeria that should bother every Christian, and I'm hardly seeing anyone talk about it. They killed 9 people from the same family. The youngest was 2 months old. It happened at dawn. Everyone was sleeping. The men came in armed, asking for Pastor Ezekiel Dacomo, a man who spent his days denouncing exactly what happened to him. But before shooting, they said that everyone there would learn. It would be a lesson. 9 died, 3 managed to escape, and the funeral for all of them was the next day. But what few people know is that Nigeria is the country where the highest number of Christians are killed in the world. In 2008, when I was in Lagos, Nigeria, I couldn't go to a church service because the day before, a group had shot up a church in that same neighborhood. In 2026, out of almost 5,000 Christians killed because of their faith in the world, more than 3,400 were Nigerians. And just in July of this year, more than 350 have already been killed. That's an average of more than 11 people per day. And another detail is that the leader of the Nigerian government is Muslim, and he denies this religious persecution. He says it's a conflict over land and power. And maybe all of this is true at the same time, but none of these explanations answers a simple question. If the dispute is over territory, why take the lives of children? Here in Brazil, more than 90% of the population declares themselves religious. And this week, while these entire families were being buried in Nigeria because of their faith, our main discussion on social media was something else. We argued and got outraged about Vinny Jr., who had facial harmonization. But we weren't outraged about an entire family being buried, and that can't be normal or acceptable. Seeing and knowing about this kind of thing should deeply bother us and make us think and take action for this cause. When a generation decides that believing is for weak people, and when the father doesn't instill anything in the home, something else takes that place. It always does. Easy times create men who don't know how to defend anything. And men who don't know how to defend anything end up giving away without realizing it what was built with a lot of pain and effort. Today, this kind of news might seem distant, but maybe it's closer than you think. We have a government that supports dictators and seems indifferent to the persecution of Christians, and that's why I speak out. The 2026 election will be decisive for conservative families and for Christians. Now follow me and share this video with your church and tag someone who needs to hear this today.
That's right, isn't it, my friends? He mentioned those cases in Nigeria, and it's a good point for reflection. For me, it's a clear sign, right? Because this persecution of Christians is happening in several places around the world. People don't mention it because it's about Nigeria. When you ask, the local authorities deny it. No, that's just a land dispute. Interesting how it never happens to the other side. In a dispute, you'd expect both to be affected, right? Isn't that right? If it really was a land dispute, it would also happen to others who don't have this faith, right? It would happen to people of other faiths too. But no, it happens specifically to Christians. Why is that? But when you go ask, you see an authority there, right? A Muslim who hates Christians. What does he say? No, I deny it. That's it. The media covers it up. If they wanted to expose it, they'd just go to China. It's not something new, my brothers. Many people talk about people who disappear in that region who could, right? Olavo de Carvalho used to say that. There's a video of him from 6 years ago where he makes it clear what happened to those people, right? I'm not going to repeat it here, but it had to do with the healthcare sector, which needs a lot of organs and so on.
A new investigative report found that the underground organ transplant industry in China is now harvesting organs from babies to make huge profits and also to prolong the lives of Chinese Communist Party leaders. The report was released by the World Organization to investigate the persecution of Falun Gong, which is a non-profit institution. They have been investigating and exposing this for several years. This issue of forced organ harvesting, that is, the removal of a person's organs without their consent. In one of its newest reports, the organisation brings to light that military hospitals of the Chinese Communist Party have made significant advances in implementing organ transplants from babies. The report states that, in fact, this has already been carried out by these military hospitals for more than a decade, but that in recent times they have been able to overcome major technical obstacles, which has allowed them to gradually begin implementing these organ transplants in babies on a large scale. The report states the following, I quote, "Due to the extremely small size of children's organs and their delicate blood vessels. The surgeries were highly difficult and carried a significant risk of thrombosis, leading to a high failure rate in the early stages. However, in recent years, this technology has undergone critical advances, leading the military medical system to refocus on children's organs." End quote.
Anyway, you got the idea. Yeah, Olavo de Carvalho spoke out about this a lot, that the Chinese government was involved in it. But no one can ever prove it because they have to admit it themselves. There would have to be a revolution there, right? So that another government could come in and expose all those dirty secrets. But since they are the authority themselves, how do you think you're going to be able to prove that? So that's the big question, because there are people who say that, especially when you talk to someone on the left, someone who supports all this corruption, they'll immediately say, but where's the proof of that? I want the statistics, but who are you going to ask for proof from? Are you asking the people committing the crime? It's complicated. Now, this persecution has increased a lot, right? You've had decades of the Communist Party in power, but they hadn't gotten to the point of tearing down churches, arresting Christians, right? Ordinary people, religious leaders, and so on, like what's happening now. But what really shows me, that we're truly going through a turbulent time is the silence itself, right? People, even those who have a bias, are also staying quiet. They're not very interested in this subject. You'll see, even by the views, this kind of topic doesn't attract much interest. Now, my brothers, another video here, another example, that society is completely lost. And we've talked a lot about this here, which for me is also another sign, especially in that passage, that says man would become a lover of himself. Here it means mankind, Look at how this young woman dresses, just so you can see that it's not just a thing about being macho. No, it's not that men can't handle seeing a very curvy woman. No, that's not it at all. You'll see that the way this young woman dresses also shocks other women, right? So look here. Everyone is staring, see? Look, see how she's dressed. The bad thing about this family is that a young woman like this, she starts to get really famous, right? Some even get rich, in fact, by exposing themselves like this. There are two serious problems here. Some get rich because there are guys who go to adult sites and pay a fortune to these girls, right? And others see this and want to follow their example. So they do this too, but most of them don't go that far, right? Most of them don't get to the point of starting an adult content page or working on one. So she dresses like that to go to the mall, to go to the gym. And then a lot of guys start hitting on her. But like we've already mentioned here, it's not the kind of guy who's going to marry her. It's the kind of guy who just wants to use her as an object and throw her away like a dirty piece of meat. Because that's how a man is going to see a woman like that. Those who are famous, who are millionaires, who don't need a man to split expenses with them anymore, they can even support that man. She ends up with exactly the kind of man to be by her side who, honestly, if you have to be with that kind of guy, it's better to be alone. So that's someone else who'll be unhappy too. And it's no wonder, right? We can prove that statistically with so many cases of people with DP. People who have their pockets full, people who have acquired the material goods they wanted, exposing themselves like that. And the result is sad. If you look at the cast of movies, right? Adult movies, for example, from the 90s up to around 2005, you'll see that a good part of that cast, and this really stands out, ended their lives in a tragic way. But the mainstream media avoids showing that because they've always supported it. That's what they call liberalism. In those times, this girl wouldn't act like that. Why? Because everyone would call her out for the way she's behaving, right? It would be really tough. She wouldn't be able to handle the criticism. But nowadays, criticizing someone is already seen as sexism or something like that, right? The media really managed to win. My brother, if you can watch it, right? I've said this before, the old programming. Don't watch it just to entertain yourself. Watch it as if you were watching a documentary. You will see the filthy activism they were doing all the time. Yeah, especially soap operas from the late 70s to the early 80s. You'll see the absurd things they were spreading and how they were shaping people's minds. So this is the result of all that, right? This wasn't just on Globo, okay? I'm using Globo as an example since it was the biggest, but this was a worldwide movement. That's why you see these girls acting like this today. Making it clear in these images that it even shocks other women, right? When they see this kind of clothing. Now let's move on to another sign, right? For me, this clearly shows someone who loves himself. Here we have someone who should already be institutionalized. But nowadays, if you say that a person like this should be institutionalized, you might even get arrested yourself. Look here, I'm not even going to comment, okay? Look at this person here who insists they're a dog. Just look. Look at this, brother. You got that, right? This person said they feel like a dog. Started behaving. I almost choked just now. Like a dog. The dog saw and said, "Are you a dog or not?" Then it made her turn back into a person, right? Funny that when the dog started biting, she didn't bark or bite the dog either, right? She stood up and immediately became herself again. That's it, my brother. I recall my grandparents saying that the cure for a crazy person is another crazy person on their back. So, you guys are terrible. So I think this image makes it really, really clear, right, my brothers? Because this is a joke, right? They should take him, commit him, spend a few days there, right, with a straitjacket and everything to say, look, if you keep behaving like this, I'm going to put you here, right? But unfortunately, my brothers, it's going to be very hard to fix this kind of thing, right? Because we are the result of decades of indoctrination, right? Yeah, it's extremely important to understand that, to wrap up, right? So we don't end this video with only negative things. Let's hear a little bit about the history of El Salvador. It's a really short video. If you want, we can do a special about it later. I was thinking about doing that, guys. A video that's about half an hour or longer, right? Talking about the history. The history of El Salvador, the main points. If you want, we can do it, okay? So let's take a look here, just so you can see. Let me put this on. Let's go. Listen up, family. This one's a pleasure to hear. Let's go.
They began killing random people on the street every 30 minutes, you know?
How long did it take?
To less than 6 months.
6 months?
Yes, because Bukele went to war with the gangs. They killed 86 people in the streets to pressure him, right? So it's like, I'm going to war with you, start arresting people. Then the faction said, no, I'm going to create a public safety crisis to weaken this guy, and he couldn't stop it. They started killing random people every 30 minutes in the street. And then they committed 86 homicides in a single weekend. And then the guys declared them terrorists. That's when this paranoia started saying, no, now you're terrorists, so some of the state's rights no longer apply to you. No, now we're going to hunt you down. And Sicot was built for these guys.
El Salvador is one of the more than 100 originals from Brazil Paralelo. We traveled to the country that claims to have destroyed the criminal gangs and recorded every detail. For you to watch this and all our other productions, we've made BP available forever. The subscription that guarantees lifetime access to everything we've already produced and everything we will produce.
Yeah, family, that's something I'll probably subscribe to as well. I have no connection with Brazil Paralelo. I'm just talking about myself, okay? If you want to do it, do it. If you don't, don't. But I find their programming really interesting. Their channel is awesome too. I'm even going to look into getting this subscription as well. But anyway, family, if El Salvador can do this, Brazil can do it too. The problem with not doing it isn't this politicization of the state. It's not, you know, the gods of Olympus. Like, man, the big problem in Brazil, I think we wouldn't even need to get to the level of El Salvador or others. Or Nepal, for instance, which many people mention. It would just take the population understanding, you know, what's really going on. But unfortunately, the results of these decades of manipulation are there. So that's why it can't be done. That's the only reason why it can't be done. Because you saw the gangs, right? If you didn't catch it, the gangs, when he started sending the police after them to really arrest that bunch of thugs, and a lot of them died, right? They started taking the lives of citizens at random. If you walked on the sidewalk, they would kill you. The guy was there at your house, they would break in and kill the whole family. For what? So that the local media, which was bought off, would start bad-mouthing the government and pinning it all on them. Look at that. Because of you, because of your harsh way of acting, look how many people are being killed. That's why, my brothers, someone who really wants to change things will be unpopular. They have to be unpopular. They'll have to be someone who, for example, goes up to the Marinos, the Bravanelos, you know, to Edmar. If they go up to these guys, the owners of the mainstream media, the big shots, and say, look, I don't want this kind of publication or else I'll arrest you. David, do you support that? Are you in favor of dictatorship? If you don't clean up the country now, later you can let them say whatever they want. But to deal with these crooks, and many will have to face consequences like in El Salvador, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. If the guy is really going to do this cleanup, he needs to have the media on his side. He can't have the media attacking all the time and enraging the population, because obviously let's go. When these things start to happen, what are the consequences? Insecurity on the streets, okay? If there's insecurity in the country, if there are high rates of loss of life, do you think that increases investments in the country or decreases them? So it decreases. And what comes next? Crisis. Businesses are afraid to open. These guys will break into stores and shoot the shopkeeper. So, who's responsible for that? Just imagine, you might even be supporting the guy's actions. Like, no, he has to do that. Okay, but what if your father died, your son died, would you still support it? Obviously, a lot of people are going to do what? Criticize the guy, say he's doing things the right way and all that. You'll buy into the media's arguments. You'll be poisoned by the media. Do you see how complex it is? I keep looking at Trump's case, you know? Facing those ill-wishers out there, Trump could have ended this a long time ago. But what does he have? Congress is against him. He has the media against him. He has the Supreme Court, which is now showing it's against him. At first, it was even defending him. But all it took was for the public to start listening to and accepting the media's criticism, right? Trump's popularity started to drop. So what happens? The judges start going after Trump, even forbidding him from acting without, you know, a decision from the parliament first, which is what's happening now. He can't just act like he could a few months ago. So don't expect him to solve this in a simple and easy way. That's the big problem, my brothers. So, it's because of things like this that we're in this position. That's why I say change is extremely hard. Because it's not that it can't be done. Obviously, it can be done. The problem is that the people themselves don't want it. We are not the majority. In this case, we are the minority. All right, my brothers? I hope you understood. For me, all of this are signs, of the tough times that are coming, and even tougher for us who are Brazilians. Stay with God. Hugs. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Stay with God. That's it. I'm out.
Look, I'll even stop the pickup truck here. In the middle of the street, I'm gonna make a video to show you how serious this thing is. There's a lot of joking on this page. This page has a lot of jokes, but look here, this thing is serious. Look here, on a Wednesday, 5 in the morning, I'm heading out to work. Look, cabaret. The nightclub is empty and the gym is full. Look at that. The gym is packed and the nightclub is empty. Look. Look, there are no cars in front, and here the gym is packed. So you can see that the end of the world is near. The world is ending. Values are reversed. The nightclub is empty, which is surprising, while the gym is packed. Everything's gone soft. Screw it, I'm out. Even the dog is sad. Look at this nightclub. The nightclub's empty, man. Look at that dog. He looks so sad. Look over there. Look at the gym. Packed, packed.